And by looking back at these objects today, we're not trying to escape the present. We're just trying to enrich it. You know, I'm trying to carry forward the best parts of yesterday. The wonder, the simplicity, the comfort, the creativity, the heart. Hey everyone, my name is Perry, and welcome back to the Cassette Phase. So I hope that you all had a nice weekend. And as we start another new week, I just wanted to pop on here for a few minutes today to talk about a few things. Before we get too far into it though, let's talk a little bit about the upcoming channel schedule. We've got some viewer mail to unbox in the next couple of videos. We've also got another top 10 list, a soda can unboxing, and I'm almost done gathering my thoughts on the most recent book review that I want to share with you all. Today's video, though, is going to be kind of informal. I just felt like going over to my shelves today, here in my 80s inspired home office slash living room that I've lovingly titled The Den, and pull down 5 random objects, bring them over here to the ottoman and take a closer look at them. And of course, talk about all the memories that are associated with each thing. And I don't really have a plan other than I want to mix it up. You know, so one DVD, one action figure, one book, etc. I have a lot of nostalgic objects in this room here, and I want to continue sharing them with you guys. But before we do that, I want to talk just briefly about why do I collect? Right? Why do I surround myself with these types of items? And don't worry, we're not going to go too in depth on the whole nostalgia, collecting, mental health thing today. That'll be a larger topic for a future video. And speaking of collecting, we're also going to take a look at our next installment in the Cassette of the Day series. So another casual, relaxing, nostalgic hangout here in the den today. Sound like fun to you? Come hang out. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Ottoman, and welcome to another great day here in the den. We're over on the TV. We've got some Inspector Gadget going today. Love that old cartoon. But before we head over to the shelves and pull down some objects and share some memories, let's do our cassette of the day. And today we're back to VHS, so a movie from 1994 that, for whatever reason, I rented a ton as a kid. This movie was a big part of a lot of blockbuster nights for us, and I don't even really know why, because it came on TV all the time too. But really good summer movie, really good cast, just kind of one of those comfort films that doesn't really get old no matter how many times you see it. It's always great to have it on in the background, even though it's a thriller, technically. We've got, like I said, from 1994, we've got The River Wild. Great cast. Meryl Streep, Kevin Bacon, of course, John C. Reilly, I believe. And what's funny is I was like, okay, Kevin Bacon did Whitewater Summer, right? Which was kind of another rafting kind of movie. I think it was more canoes in that one. And so I was thinking, well, maybe Kevin Bacon just loved rivers and did his own stunts and things like that. But I don't think that was the case. I think I read that Meryl Streep did some of her own stunts in this movie, but she was, I think, the only one for the most part. I could be wrong about that. Yeah, apparently she was, they were filming, which Montana, by the way, beautiful, beautiful country. You know, if I think I could handle the winters, I could see myself living in Montana one day, maybe as a retiree or maybe sooner. It's just so pretty to me. I don't know why, but yeah, I guess I was reading about this film a little bit. The Vacation is Over. Love that. Where they were the director was trying to push them to get one more scene in, and Meryl Streep was saying, I'm tired. I don't think I have another one in me. And I think he kind of pushed the issue. and it ended up getting him in trouble because she ended up falling out, and luckily she had like a life vest on, and it wasn't a huge tragedy. But I think I read that she said, next time I tell you that I'm done for the day, you need to listen. So I thought that was an interesting little story about this movie. But yeah, nothing revolutionary, just great scenery, pretty good acting. Like I said, with this cast, you can't go wrong. And one that we've probably all seen, but if you haven't seen it in a while, highly recommended. Check it back out. Especially as we continue on through the dog days of summer. This is a really good, fun summer movie. So I thought it would be a good choice for today's cassette of the day with The River Wild. So just in case you are newer to the channel, I feel like I should just briefly mention that we are all about nostalgia here on the Cassette Phase. This is an 80s and 90s pop culture and nostalgia channel. So we do a lot of reminiscing around here. And if by chance you're not subscribed yet and you enjoy frequent trips down memory lane, go ahead and click subscribe. It would mean a lot. Also, before we move on, I want to give a quick shout out to Ivan. Now, Ivan is the son of Steve, who is a great friend of the channel. You've seen him in the comments as Lost in the 80s. And Steve and his son Ivan have been known to watch the Cassette Phase together, which I think is just awesome. So shout out to you, Ivan. I hope you're having a good day. I subscribed to your channel, by the way. But as I mentioned before, let's take just a few minutes to talk about why we collect, right? Like many hobbies and many interests, the appeal can be kind of hard to see for those outside of this retro community. Some people might be like, really, man? Ninja Turtles? And I'll be like, yeah. And then I'll turn right around and say, really, man? Golf or fishing or going to the casino every weekend? We all have our stuff that we love. And I don't know about you guys, but the older that I get, the less I tend to care about what people think. And I focus more on what's best for my family and doing things that make me happy. And we're not alone in this. Nostalgia has been infused into so many of our movies and our TV shows and our video games and our merchandise and our products. It's everywhere. And nostalgia from a variety of different eras and time periods can be found all throughout different areas of life. And for me, collecting is mostly linked to nostalgia. But they're just things, right? It's just stuff. And while that might be true for some, that's certainly not the case for me, and it's probably not the case for many of you watching. Now, to us, these things are like anchors in a way. They're like time machines. They're little bookmarks in our life stories. When I hold a worn-out copy of The Never-Ending Story on VHS, I'm not just holding on to an old movie. I'm holding on to Saturday night in 1987, and a very specific feeling in a very memorable living room. And this tape can put me right back in that place, even if just briefly. Well, you might ask, why do you want to revisit the past? Shouldn't you be focused on the present and the future? Well, sure, and that's a fair question, and one that's been asked for forever, long before guys like us were collecting cassettes and action figures. The way I see it is, revisiting the past isn't about getting stuck in it. It's about remembering who we were and what shaped us and what made us feel alive. Yeah, these little trips back, they remind us of a time when joy came pretty easily. Friendships were formed over Nintendo games and Saturday morning cartoons, and the future was still just scribbled in pencil. And by looking back at these objects today, we're not trying to escape the present. We're just trying to enrich it. I'm trying to carry forward the best parts of yesterday. The wonder, the simplicity, the comfort, the creativity, the heart. The things in this room, they make me feel something. And hopefully, through modern technology, as ironic as that is, they help you feel something too. Even if it's just, whoa, I forgot about those, or hey, my grandma had that in her kitchen. And I understand that for many people, collecting is more about the thrill of the hunt, or the display factor. And I've got some of that going on myself too, but for me, gathering these items is more about memory preservation. And what's kind of cool about all of this is we don't even know which objects are going to feel the most sacred to us. You know, it's not always the rarest action figure or the most valuable comic book. It's the thing that your cousin gave you during a sleepover when you were a kid, or the Happy Meal toy that sat on your dresser until the day you moved out. So yeah, we're a little sentimental, and maybe we are building shrines to our childhood. But hey, we all have interests and hobbies. This just happens to be mine. All right, so enough with the long-winded chat. Let's head over to the shelves, pick out a few items, and take a look at them. All right, guys, let's browse the shelves here, and I'm just gonna grab whatever I see that looks interesting, that I might have some good stories or memories to share, and just start pulling things off the shelf for us to bring over to the ottoman and take a closer look at. So let's see. Okay, so right off the bat, okay, so the first item or items that I pulled down off the shelf today are these three little ridiculous porcelain frogs. Now why are these nostalgic? Well, my grandmother collected frogs just like these and had them in her bathroom, I think even in her kitchen over the years, if I remember correctly. And so anytime I see these little things, it makes me think of my grandmother's house, you know, growing up. So, you know, my wife and I and one of our friends were always scouring the estate sale ads each week. And I had seen these. This estate sale had a whole, you know, shelf full of little frogs. And I couldn't make it, but I asked him, I was like, hey, if you're there, can you grab me a few of these little guys? And they did. And that's why they're here. Nothing too fancy, just little frogs. Make me think of Grandma's house. Let's keep going. Okay, so we've put the frogs back on the shelf. I'm thinking a DVD. Let's take a look at a DVD. You know, we're always doing cassettes of the day around here. Let's give some love to a different kind of media. Let me see. Let me pick one out. All right, so which DVD did I pull down? Which movie did we go with? I just kind of randomly grabbed the 1987 film, The Gate. A great 80s movie as we slowly but surely head into spooky season and Halloween time. Well, a couple months from now anyway. It's never too early to start thinking about it. And really, these old, you know, relatively innocent and harmless horror movies, they're great any time of year. And that's exactly what this is. A movie that came on cable a lot when we were kids. You know, I saw it in bits and pieces growing up on various networks, but never saw it in its entirety, I don't think, until I was an adult and, you know, caught it streaming somewhere and then eventually found it on DVD. So, yeah, 1987. Still to this day, and people will say this is cheesy, and it does have some cheesy elements, but it is an 80s horror movie, so what do you expect? But the effects in this were pretty cool for the time. You know, they're not Fright Night level practical effects or anything like that, but these little demons that would run around the feet of some of these characters, those things were super creepy. And I think about, you know, movies like Lord of the Rings and how they use like perspective to make the hobbits look small compared to the other people around them. I feel like they did just as good a job here back in 1987 with what I have to assume was a fairly low budget film with The Gate. But this is a really fun one to pop in if you can't think of anything to watch on a Friday night with your popcorn and your soda. Give The Gate another watch. It's a lot of fun. All right, so we talked about a movie. Let's grab a book. You know, I've got so many great paperbacks up there, vintage, modern, all kinds. Let's find one to look at. Okay, so what book did I pull down off the shelf? I had tons of choices. I was being pretty indecisive, but I ended up going with a 1973 novel by Lois Duncan called I Know What You Did Last Summer. And most of you probably know the 1997 film. It came out in the peak of 90s horror and slasher resurgence, with Scream and movies like that. And I still really like the original 1997 movie, I Know What You Did Last Summer. I think it's a lot of fun. Never read the book, kind of interested to see. I'm sure it probably follows I'm sure the movie probably followed this story pretty closely, but we're going to find out. This will be a quick, easy read. I have had a lot of luck lately over the past few months finding some cool old vintage paperbacks. And when I do my book review coming up, we're going to do an in-depth review of Robert McCammon's Boy's Life, which I finished, a while back, but I've just been kind of finding the time to gather my thoughts and come up with a good review that's going to do it justice. So I appreciate your patience while I put that together. But before we do that book review, I'm going to do a little pickups video haul where I show you all the recent books that I've obtained over the past few months. I've gotten some really cool ones, and this was one of them. So I love these old paperbacks. I love the smell of it when you have a bunch of them in one room. It's like kind of like a library or an old bookstore. I like that a lot, and the cover art's really cool. Just very retro and vintage looking. So I don't know when I'm going to work this one in, but it'll be on the short stack of novels that I'm going to read coming up soon, and figured it was a good day to show it to you guys. So there we go. Okay, guys, what is that? That's 3, right? We did a movie, we did a book, we did some little collectibles. Let's do a toy this time, right? Can't go wrong with that. And I already know which one or ones I'm going for here. Now, there weren't a whole lot of toy options and choices up on those shelves these days, as you guys know. The ones that are up there have true sentimental value and true meaning behind them, each one, for the most part. And these are no exception. I pulled down 2 die-cast Smurfs cars. Now, these are some of the earliest toys that I can remember playing with. And this is one of those items that I had forgotten about until I saw them. I don't know if it was Marketplace or eBay or a toy fair. I can't remember. I've had these for several years now, but the image of the butterfly on the hood of Smurfette's car combined with like the way these wheels look, it really did take me back to being like 4 years old. It's crazy. Really cool feeling though. And there were several others, I think, in this line. I think you could get them in like a pack. In fact, there's an airplane one that I need to track down. I think it's a yellow like biplane that I also had. I need to look for that soon because I think those are the 3 that I had. I probably had the whole pack at some point, but how cars are when you're a kid, they get lost. They wind up under the couch or out in the backyard and never to be seen again. But I'm sure happy to have these 2. Like I said, 2 of the absolute earliest toys that I can remember in my existence. And that's why they have a rightful place up on the shelves. And last, but certainly not least, I'm thinking we'll grab a video game. So I've got all the Genesis games down here. But I've already showed those to you guys pretty recently, so let's grab a Nintendo cart. Let's go grab an original NES cartridge. And the last item for today, I think we'll be doing more videos like this in the future because they're a lot of fun. They're pretty easy for me to put together, and I just like talking about this stuff. So I hope you guys enjoy it too. I appreciate you being here. The last item, as you saw, was a Nintendo game. One of the ones that I had as a kid and that I played pretty frequently, and that's Spy Hunter. a port of a really fun arcade game. I think I read that Spy Hunter was one of the most, the highest grossing. Is that kind of how you talk about how many quarters people dropped into them? Whatever, it was one of the most frequently played arcade games, I think, in 1983 and 1984. And it looked amazing in the arcades. Very, very cool. If I can find a picture, I'll try to put it in here. But I remember the game more for the NES version, which I guess was based on kind of like I guess the game itself is based loosely on like James Bond, and that makes sense. But I just remember the music in this being really memorable. This was one of those games that I would quickly just put in the morning before school. You know, you've had your breakfast, you've gotten dressed, you've got your backpack ready to go, and you still have 10-15 minutes. Play some Spy Hunter, and that's what I did. I rarely sat down like on the weekend and played big long sessions of Spy Hunter. This was a kind of a get in, get out type of game, and I was never any good at it, and maybe that's why I never dedicated enough time to it. But it was challenging. You know, you could try to go slow, but that wouldn't quite work. So you try to speed up really fast, and that definitely wouldn't work. And there's a lot going on the screen. Just really cool sense of speed for an 8-bit game, which they ported across multiple consoles from what I read. But really cool art there. Like I said, very reminiscent of James Bond, and I owned this one, but I could definitely see how that artwork would make this a popular rental. You know, if you saw that sitting on the shelf at your mom and pop rental store where you rent your Nintendo games, I could see that being one that caught our eyes as 8 and 9-year-olds. You know, not the best game ever, but still fun every once in a while to sit down and give it 5 or 10 minutes of your time. So I'll always have a special place on my shelf for old Spy Hunter here. And there we are. So I hope that you all enjoyed our little retro, vintage, nostalgic hangout here in the den today. And if you did, consider subscribing. Also, don't forget to like the video, but only if you actually liked the video. But for now, and as always, relax, enjoy life, and be kind. We'll see you in the next one.